Welcome to the Idea to Value podcast, where in every episode we highlight the latest insights into creativity and innovation from experts around the world. I'm your host, Nick Skillicorn. I care about the evidence behind what makes ideas happen, and I've already helped thousands of people just like you through my unique insights into recent scientific findings of how creativity works. I also show you how to turbocharge innovation programs so they finally deliver on the value and ideas you've been struggling to execute. Get your free training on how creativity can be improved by registering now at www.ideatovalue.com. Now let's get on with today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Idea to Value podcast. It's me, Nick Skillicorn here, and I'm very happy to have Janet Sernack with me again. Janet is an innovation expert from Australia, and we're going to be having a discussion today about what it takes for the right mindset to exist in an organization for innovation to succeed. Janet, it's wonderful speaking to you again.
Yes, it's been some time, Nick, so thank you for inviting me to speak to your audience. I feel really honoured.
No worries. Now, some of you guys might know about Janet already, but this might be the first time you've heard of Janet. Janet, can you just give us a quick introduction into who you are and what sort of work you do?
Okay, so I specialise on the people side of innovation because any digital transformation process is both about strategy, data and people. And we teach and enable people how to be, think and do things differently. So I've been in the organisational development space for more than 30 years, and I'm a specialist in adult learning, coaching, culture and leadership. And I created Imagination as a startup, as a modern elder in Israel, and I was there for 6 years, which was very stimulating and inspirational, and now I'm here in beautiful Bayside, Melbourne, Australia.
And we've talked many times before, but one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast this time is I understand that you're building up something that's quite new to the region when it comes to developing innovation skills, and it's something to do with corporate mindsets. So let's talk about that today. What is this mindset thing, and how does it relate to innovation?
Okay, that's a really great question, Nick, and thanks for asking. So as we know, mindset is a frame of reference in terms of how you perceive your world. And most of the time, our mindsets are implicit and they're unconscious. And having worked in the mindset space now for more than 20 years, it's really important to understand that mindsets drive behaviours and actions and strategies and decision making and problem solving, which then impacts on the results that you achieve. So in the past, the main mindset here in Australia that we were teaching was this mindset of taking personal responsibility, looking for solutions and not laying blame, denying or justifying what happened. So that probably was the major mindset that we worked with organisations, and certainly it's the core of any great leader, is that ability to be proactive and make that space between stimulus and response for options and choices, and, own the situation. So we've seen that mindset advance to Carol Dweck's great work with the growth mindset, which is about, everything can be learnt and any problem is an opportunity for change or for learning. So we see these as foundational mindsets. So in innovation, Nick, we teach something called both and. So we say that, as a mindset, you need to be able to take personal responsibility for the results that you cause or achieve. So you also need to perceive the world as a place of opportunity and possibility. So yeah, they're really important in the innovation context, but there's 3 other mindsets that we work with here at Imagination. The first is a really obvious one, and necessity is the mother of all invention. So you might have a very strong need to survive as an organisation or as a leader. So necessity is a really key driver, and you need to have a strong why to innovate. The next mindset that we work with is possibility, and that is to really believe that things are possible, dream the impossible. And the third mindset is wonder. So, you know, that pursuit of novelty and the pursuit of something different. So in our work, what we've learned to do, especially as specialists in the innovation coaching space, is to use what we call a generative inquiry skill set, which is around being able to listen at the generative level to the whole system, what's being said, what's not being said, and to be curious and inquisitive and know how to inquire in such a way that you're provocative and disruptive, that you actually create collisions between those three mindsets. And when you create a collision, you end up, which is what I saw in Israel, you end up with that pursuit of necessity, because it is the mother of all invention. But when you collide it with possibility, then you also ask, well, what could be possible in this situation? And then with the novelty mindset, you can say, well, where can we add value in ways that are very different and unique? So we have a practice of working individually and with teams around those mindsets. But in the organisational context, it's a bit different. So you might want to ask me another question.
No, I mean, absolutely. I don't think anyone would disagree that those mindsets you described are very, very important. But as you know, I'm the evidence guy, and I've got space for discussions around some of the more, shall I say, feeling-based ephemeral concepts that you've been talking about there. But one thing which I'm quite excited to hear about is a different approach to mindsets that we've been talking about quite recently, which is a bit more evidence-based, a bit more quantitative. So what's that?
That's another great question, and thanks for asking. In my pursuit for a culture assessment tool, an innovation culture assessment tool that wasn't process-based, as so many of them are, I came across the really great work of Dr. Brett Richards from Connective Intelligence in Canada, and he's recently published a book called Grow Through Disruption, which is about his new tool, culture assessment tool called the Organisational Growth Indicator. So you probably would agree that every organisation wants to grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so in the past, a lot of growth objectives were set based on how you grew in the past. You know, you just add 5% or 10%. So differently to a lot of cultural assessment tools, like what's very popular here in Australia, the Organisational Culture Inventory by Human Synodistics, which is a very good foundational tool. So again, it's both and. What I was looking for was a culture assessment tool that could actually relate to the system and the cognitive architecture of an organisation, and that's what the OGI does. So in a nutshell, the OGI can actually quantify the key factors that influence an organisation's ability to grow through adaptive change and innovation. So the four mindsets in this model, the first, of course, is imagine, which is about creativity. The second is resolve, which is about decision-making and problem-solving. The third is analyse, so your ability to use IT and data. And the fourth is align, which is around the people side, in terms of people's ability to align to the values and the vision and also their level of empowerment. So most tools don't take that kind of systemic perspective. So the OGI uses what we call empirical evidence, so you'll be pleased, Nick, to correlate.
That's what I'm all about.
Correlate the organization's readiness and ability to grow in ways that outperform the market. So when we work with a client, we not only do a 20-minute online assessment, which is done individually, and then of course, the data is correlated and analysed, but it will actually show, for example, giving you client case studies. We worked with an engineering corporation that really wanted to innovate because its founders, who are amazing entrepreneurs who'd won all sorts of export awards and were incredible inventors, they were looking to retire and leave a legacy. So of course the CEO wanted to know how to build an innovation culture. So initially he got us in to speak to the provider he was conferring with to buy an ideation platform. And we said, well, before you invest $1 to $2 million, it might be good to measure whether or not your people have readiness and receptivity, to even using the platform, because they were very technologically savvy company. So when we did the research, we found that their Imagine mindset was actually very low. We called it in that Imagine mindset only showed them as a tier 2 organization.
But what does tier 2 mean out of this concept?
It means that they were very reactive in terms of their transformation and innovation stance. They had a marginal ability to innovate and only a developing ability to transform. And when we did the qualitative research, which of course is aligned to the quantitative research, we found that people believed that only the founders could innovate. So there was no permission in the culture to innovate, and they never would have used the ideation platform because they were too busy putting out fires, and they were awesome firefighters. We also found the people on the aligned mindset around values and engagement was also very low, and people didn't understand the vision. They were very disconnected from the vision. They were very disconnected from the values and the BHAG, and that scoring very low, and that the highest scoring mindsets were the Resolve, which was about solutions and results, and Analyse, which was about innovation and proof, were really high up. But it meant that the organisation was very process and technology driven, probably in overdrive, and everything was data based. So, the organisation had lost its entrepreneurial heart, and also because the culture was being driven by the need to get sales, then all of these amazingly talented and highly skilled engineers working in this firm were actually sending out faulty product, and there'd been no acknowledgement of the cost of that. So that also impacted on the low engagement score, or the low people side, which differentiates, of course, a lot of, I'm sure, Nick, a lot of the people you talk to do engagement surveys. They only measure, at the top of the iceberg, the outcome of some of these factors. And then a climate survey just measures, how people are thinking and feeling, whereas a really deep culture assessment, like the OGI, will actually identify the values and the beliefs and the messages that are driving the results that the organisation gets. So I found my tool, and I'm proud to say I'm the APAC distributor.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds excellent, but my question is, you've got these 4 mindsets. Are they sort of one or the other? Are they sort of on a spectrum from one to the other, or do you need all 4 of them to have a high score to be innovative? How does it actually work?
That's a really good question, and it's one of the questions we asked Brett when we started. See, it all depends on what your goals are. So that's the first answer. So, you know, some organizations want to, you know, like I've got one client now who wants to increase his profitability. So he needed to focus on where he scored low. I had another client that wants to measure his ability to deliver projects on time. So depending on how he scores will depend on what mindset needs to be developed more of and what mindset needs to be less of. So it's a systemic approach. It works in sync with the organization's strategy, which is another reason why I love it, because it gives people a real indicator as to whether the organization has the capability to meet the strategy or not.
It's always a very challenging discussion to go to a board or a chairman or a CEO and perhaps push back on what they think the strategy is, or whether or not the strategy is the right one in the first place.
That's another great point, because, see, every organization needs to define innovation in its own context, number one. And number two is that it's strategic and systemic. So it is a big conversation, which is where all the coaching skills come into play, because innovation is quite a challenge for many boards and many executive teams. So having that, that honest and authentic conversation up front. But also the beauty of the OGI and the tool is that it gives you a measure, and it's reliable, it's valid, and it actually tells you how it is. And then you can come in with whatever is needed to push one mindset up, and another one down, depending on what the strategy is or the organizational need is.
I mean, that's where I always find it's very interesting finding out how you actually change someone's mindset. Because it's one thing to find out that, perhaps they're not as analysis strong as they should be, or they're not as creative as they should be. Once you have that information, what can you actually do to change someone's mindset? Is it something that's ingrained, or is it something that can change?
I think from my many years of running workshops and coach programs and culture diagnostics, mindsets can be changed. And the beauty of the OGI is that there's 12 orientations which can become learning and development programs, or can become project-based interventions, or can be done as agile projects to actually build the mindset within the people in the organisation. So what we say, there's individual mindset, there's team mindset, there's a divisional mindset, and there's an organisational mindset. So when we do the demographics in an OGI, we can see that sometimes these are all different. So as great resources, great long experience in adult learning methodologies, innovation is about deep learning. So we can go in and work with shifting those mindsets by starting with the notion of personal responsibility and the importance of a growth mindset, and then building the other mindsets. And it all links to behaviours. So there are 12 behavioural orientations to help shift the mindset. In an organisational context, it's top-driven, top-down, and bottom-up. So it's both and.
Janet, it's been fascinating speaking with you about this. I'm sure we could keep speaking for hours and hours, but if anyone wants to find out more about your work on mindsets, or get in touch about the OGI, how can they best get in touch with you?
Go to our website, www.imagine, and then nation, nation.com.au. We are going to be pivoting the website again in the next few weeks. And our byline is going to be growing through, helping you grow through disruption. So if disruption hasn't hit you yet, it most certainly will, and we can help you grow and see it as a really positive thing. You can also connect with me via LinkedIn, Facebook, all the usuals. So, and we're global, so we've got ecosystem partners in the UK, in the Emirates, and also in Hong Kong.
Fantastic. Janet, it's been wonderful having you here, and I look forward to speaking again with you soon.
And thanks, Nick, for inviting me. I'm most appreciative.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave me a comment about what you thought and what you'd like to see more about. If you want to take your creativity and innovation capabilities to the next level, then invest in yourself with the premium training only available at ideatovalue.com. These exclusive training modules have all been put together by me, Nick Skillicorn, and have been used by thousands of artists, innovation leaders, and CEOs to become better at understanding the source of their creativity and executing on their innovation ambitions. And there is no risk to you, as they are backed by our money-back guarantee. Now, don't forget to go out there and make your ideas a reality. See you again soon.